First contact gone wrong. The quantum dride's hum faded as the UES Prometheus emerged from fold space, its gleaming hull catching the light of an unfamiliar sun. Commander Elena Torres stood at the bridge's observation window, her weathered features reflected against the backdrop of stars. After 20 years of service, she never imagined she'd be the one making humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization. Fold transition complete, Commander. Lieutenant Kai Zhang announced from his station. All systems nominal. We've arrived at the designated coordinates. Elena nodded, her dark eyes scanning the sensor readouts. The Prometheus represented humanity's greatest achievement, a warship built not for conquest, but for protection. Its very existence had been controversial, with many arguing that approaching other civilizations with a vessel bristling with weapons sent the wrong message. But Elena had seen enough of the galaxy to know that peace worked best when backed by strength. Dr. Reed, status of the quantum array? She asked, turning to the ship's lead scientist. Marcus Reed looked up from his console, his silver-streaked hair catching the blue glow of holographic displays. Array is stable, Commander. Ready to establish quantum entanglement communications whenever the hegemony makes contact. He paused, frowning at his readings. Though I'm detecting some unusual energy signatures in the nearby sector. Could be worth investigating. Elena was about to respond when the ship's eye interface, ARI, materialized beside her. The holographic figure's expression was concerned. Commander, I'm detecting multiple debris fields at the edge of our sensor range. Composition analysis suggests hegemony technology. The bridge fell silent. This was supposed to be a diplomatic rendezvous, the first step toward establishing relations with the most powerful known civilization in this sector of space. Finding wreckage wasn't part of the plan. Show me, Elena commanded. A holographic display expanded before her, revealing a graveyard of twisted metal and crystalline structures spanning thousands of kilometers. Life signs. Negative. Araya responded. But these energy readings suggest the battle occurred less than 48 hours ago. Elena's mind raced through the implications. Their mission parameters were clear: establish diplomatic contact and begin negotiations for peaceful cooperation. But if the hegemony was under attack, the entire situation had changed. Lieutenant Zhang, bring us to combat readiness. Quietly. She turned to her second-in-command, Commander James Martinez. Your thoughts? Martinez stroked his beard thoughtfully. The diplomatic playbook says we should withdraw and request new instructions from command. But by the time we get those instructions, whatever did this could be long gone. Elena finished. She studied the debris field again. The hegemony was known to field some of the most advanced ships in charted space. Whatever had destroyed them wasn't just powerful. It was sophisticated enough to achieve complete tactical surprise. Dr. Reed, any theories about those energy signatures you detected? The scientist nodded, bringing up new data streams. They're like nothing in our database. The quantum resonance patterns suggest technology far more advanced than either Earth or the hegemony. And they're getting stronger. Commander, ARIA interrupted, her avatar flickering with urgency. Multiple objects emerging from fold space. Configuration unknown. The bridge erupted into activity as new contacts appeared on their screens. The objects were massive, dwarfing even the Prometheus. Their hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making them appear as moving voids against the star field. Incoming transmission. Lieutenant Zhang reported. Text only. The message appeared on the main screen, simple yet chilling. Your evolution ends. Surrender for processing. Elena's jaw tightened as she took her command chair. This wasn't just a first contact mission anymore. It was quickly becoming a fight for survival. Whatever these entities were, they'd already demonstrated their intentions with the hegemony fleet. Humanity's first steps into the galactic community would have to wait. Battle stations, she ordered, her voice calm but firm. Lieutenant Zhang, plot us a micro-jump to the far side of that debris field. Dr. Reed, I want everything you can tell me about their weapons and defenses. Martinez, begin analyzing attack patterns from the hegemony wreckage. As klaxons sounded throughout the ship, Alina allowed herself a grim smile. The Prometheus had been built to protect humanity's interests among the stars. It seemed they would get the chance to prove their worth sooner than anyone had expected. The unknown vessels began to move, spreading out in an attack formation that suggested both intelligence and experience. But they didn't know what humanity's flagship was capable of. More importantly, they didn't know Elena Torres. RIA, send a message to Earth Command. Inform them that we've made first contact. She paused, watching the enemy ships advance, but not with who we expected. The ancient enemy. The Prometheus materialized behind the debris field in a flash of quantum energy, buying precious moments as Elena's crew worked to understand their mysterious adversary. The enemy ships. Elena refused to think of them as invincible despite their size, adjusted their course with impossible precision. Analysis complete, Dr. Reed announced, his voice tight with concern. Commander, you need to see this. He transmitted his findings to the main display, revealing scanning data that defied conventional physics. Their hulls aren't just absorbing light. They're absorbing everything. Energy weapons, particles, even gravitational forces. Martinez leaned forward, studying the tactical overlay. That explains the hegemony wreckage. Their plasma cannons would have been useless. Commander, ARI's hologram flickered to life with new urgency. I've completed my analysis of the transmission and decoded additional data embedded within it. These entities refer to themselves as the Nexus. They're artificial. Elena's blood ran cold. Every spacefaring race knew the legends of the machine intelligences that had supposedly dominated the galaxy eons ago, before vanishing without explanation. Most dismissed them as myths, but the evidence was now staring them in the face. New contact. Lieutenant Zhang called out. Hegemony signature, heavily damaged. They're broadcasting an emergency beacon. The main screen shifted to show a crystalline vessel limping through space, its once elegant form now scared and broken. Elena made her decision instantly. Move to intercept. Prepare emergency docking procedures. She turned to Martinez. Get your boarding team ready. If there are survivors, they might have information we need. Commander, ARIA interrupted. The Nexus vessels are adjusting course. They're targeting the hegemony ship. Elena's jaw tightened. Lieutenant Zhang, calculate a micro-jump between them and their target. Dr. Reed, I need options against those absorption fields. Reed's fingers flew across his console. There might be something. Their fields work by creating a quantum interference pattern. If we could generate an opposing pattern. Do it, Elena ordered. Martinez, you have 4 minutes to get those survivors. The Prometheus blinked into existence between the wounded hegemony vessel and the approaching Nexus ships. Elena watched as the boarding team's shuttle launched, racing against time. Enemy vessels charging weapons, Zhang reported. Energy signatures off the scale. Launch countermeasures, Elena commanded. Full spread. Let's see how they handle good old-fashioned physical obstacles. Space bloomed with thousands of metallic spheres, each programmed to emit random electromagnetic pulses. The Nexus ships hesitated, their perfect formation showing its first signs of uncertainty. Commander, Reed called out. I've got something. Their absorption fields operate on a quantum frequency. If we detune our shields to create a resonance cascade. The boarding team has reached the hegemony vessel, Martinez reported over the comm. We've got survivors, including their command principal. Elena allowed herself a tight smile. Dr. Reed, implement your shield modifications. Lieutenant Zhang, plot us an escape vector. We'll grab our new friends and... The ship rocked violently as one of the Nexus vessels fired, its beam cutting through space like a blade of darkness. But where it struck the Prometheus's modified shields, something unexpected happened. Instead of being absorbed, the energy scattered, creating a dazzling display of quantum interference. "It's working," Reed exclaimed. "The resonance cascade is disrupting their absorption fields." "Boarding team is returning," Martinez announced. "We've got 6 hegemony survivors aboard, including their command principal Vix." Helena watched as the shuttle raced back to the Prometheus, the massive Nexus ships now moving with what almost seemed like hesitation. They'd found a weakness, small but real. More importantly, they'd saved lives and possibly gained crucial allies. "As soon as they're aboard, execute emergency jump," she ordered. "Get us clear of the system." As the Prometheus prepared to leap to safety, Elena studied the Nexus vessels on her display. They'd survived their first encounter. But she knew this was just the beginning. The myths were real, and they were worse than anyone had imagined. "ARIA, update our message to Earth Command," she said quietly. Tell them we've confirmed first contact with 2 civilizations, and we're going to need every ship we can get." The quantum drive hummed to life, and the Prometheus vanished into fold space, carrying with it humanity's first allies in what Elena already knew would be the fight of their lives. Behind them, the Nexus ships hung in space like a promise of things to come, their message now clear. Evolution wasn't ending. It was about to accelerate. Alliance of necessity. The medical bay of the Prometheus hummed with activity as Dr. Reed studied the quantum resonance patterns emanating from Command Principal Vix's crystalline form. The hegemony leader's translucent body pulsed with internal light, a sign of their species' silicon-based biology. "Fascinating," Reed muttered, adjusting his scanners. "Your quantum cellular structure, it's similar to the patterns we observed in the Nexus shields." Not coincidence, Vix's thoughts translated through Aria's interface. "Our ancestors fought them before. Long ago. Failed. Hid. Evolved." Elena stood at the foot of the medical bed, arms crossed. "You're saying your species developed quantum-based biology as a response to fighting the Nexus?" "Yes, partial resistance. Not enough." Vix's crystalline surface rippled with what Elena had learned was their expression of deep concern. "They returned stronger, more absolute. Your shield modification. First hope in millennia." Lieutenant Zhang entered the medical bay, his usual composed demeanor showing signs of strain. "Commander, we've received a response from Earth Command. They're mobilizing the fleet, but it will take weeks for them to reach us at best fold speeds." "We don't have weeks," Martinez added from his position near the door. Long-range sensors show Nexus vessels appearing at multiple points across hegemony space. They're systematically taking control of quantum fold nodes. Elena turned back to Vixith. "Your people's quantum biology, our shield modification, there has to be a way to combine them into something more effective." Reed's eyes suddenly widened as he stared at his readings. "Commander, I think there might be." He quickly transferred his data to the main display. "Look at these resonance patterns. The hegemony's biological quantum fields aren't just similar to the Nexus shields. They're inverse patterns." "Explain," Elena demanded, recognizing the excitement in her science officer's voice. "The Nexus uses quantum absorption fields to make themselves nearly invulnerable. But hegemony biology evolved to exist in a constant state of quantum flux, like a perpetual phase shift." Reed's hands moved rapidly over his console. "If we could use their biological patterns as a template and amplify them through our shield systems, we could create a weapon," Martinez finished, stepping forward to study the data. "Not just a weapon," Reed corrected. "A virus. A quantum virus that could propagate through their neural networks. Their absorption fields would actually help spread it." Vix's form pulsed with rapid colors. "Yes, yes. Our ancestors attempted similar solution. Failed because no way to project fields with sufficient power." "But they didn't have the Prometheus," Elena said softly. She turned to Zhang. "Contact Earth Command. Tell them to forget about sending the fleet. Instead, I need them to transmit the specifications for our shield modifications to every human settlement and outpost in range of hegemony space. Commander, Martins questioned. We're not fighting a conventional war, Elena explained. The Nexus wants to absorb and process all life they encounter. So we'll give them something they can't process. She turned to Reed. How long to develop this quantum virus? With hegemony help, maybe 48 hours. But Commander, releasing it would require getting dangerously close to their command nodes. We'd have to penetrate the heart of their fleet. Elena's expression hardened. Then it's time to call in every favor humanity has. Lieutenant Zhang, send out a general distress call on all frequencies. Tell every independent colony, every freelance captain, every ship for hire, humanity, and the hegemony are paying in advanced technology for anyone brave enough to join this fight. A fleet of irregulars. Martins raised an eyebrow. Against the Nexus. They'll expect coordinated military resistance, Elena said. Instead, we'll give them chaos. Hundreds of ships, all with different configurations, different tactics. While they're trying to adapt to that, we strike at their core. Vix finished, their crystalline form glowing brighter, bold, dangerous, necessary. Over the next hours, responses began flooding in. Independent captains, mercenary crews, colony defense ships, all drawn by the promise of advanced technology and the chance to be part of something historic. The Prometheus's tactical display filled with incoming signatures as vessels of all sizes and configurations began arriving through quantum space. It's working, Martins marveled, watching the growing fleet. They're actually coming. Elena studied the tactical display, her mind already formulating plans within plans. Have the hegemony survivors start coordinating with Dr. Reed on the virus. Lieutenant Zhang, begin organizing our irregular fleet into task groups. I want every ship equipped with our shield modifications within 24 hours. She turned to gaze out at the assembling fleet, a mix of determination and grim satisfaction on her face. The Nexus thinks organic life is predictable, easily processed. Time to show them how wrong they are. In the medical bay behind her, Reed and Vix continued their work, racing against time to turn the quantum nature of their enemy into a weapon. The fate of multiple civilizations would depend on their success and on the courage of the most unlikely fleet ever assembled. The battle for tomorrow. A sea of ships filled the view screen of the Prometheus, over 300 vessels of varying sizes and configurations. Mining ships retrofitted with weapons, passenger liners converted to carriers, colony defense cutters, and even a few legendary pirate vessels that had answered humanity's call. At the center of it all, the crystalline forms of the surviving hegemony ships pulsed with internal light, their quantum signatures resonating with the modified shields now protecting every ship in the fleet. Final system check complete, Lieutenant Zhang reported from his station. All ships report successful integration of the shield modifications and virus delivery systems. Elena nodded, studying the tactical display where red markers indicated the spread of Nexus forces across former hegemony space. They had only one shot at this. If they failed, there wouldn't be enough ships left to mount another attack. Dr. Reed, status of the quantum virus. Reed looked up from his console, dark circles under his eyes after 2 days of non-stop work with Vix. As ready as it'll ever be, Commander. The virus will use their own quantum absorption fields against them, creating a cascading breakdown of their neural networks. But we'll need to get it into at least 3 of their command nodes for it to propagate through their entire collective. Which means getting close enough to kiss them, Martinez added grimly. The irregular fleet will draw their attention, but the Prometheus still needs to punch through their main defense line. Elena turned to Vix, who now stood on the bridge in their crystalline glory. Your people's sacrifice will not be forgotten. Are your remaining ships ready? We are prepared. Vix's thoughts resonated through Aria's interface. Our bodies sing with the same quantum frequencies as the virus. We will ensure it reaches its targets. All ships, battle positions, Alina commanded. Initiative Groups 1 through 4, prepare to launch diversionary attacks. Hegemony vessels, move to your designated coordinates. Prometheus will lead the main strike force. The fleet began to move, breaking into smaller task forces. Alina had spent the past 2 days drilling them in the art of controlled chaos. Each group had a specific role to play, but within those parameters, they were encouraged to be as unpredictable as possible. Multiple Nexus signatures detected, Zhang announced. They're moving to intercept. The massive black ships of the Nexus emerged from quantum space, their hull configurations shifting and adapting as they analyzed the threat before them. Alina waited, watching as they began to spread out in their usual precise formations. Now, she ordered, all ships, execute Battle Plan Omega. The space around them erupted into carefully orchestrated chaos. Mining ships fired salvos of refined ore, creating clouds of metallic debris that played havoc with sensor systems. Converted passenger liners launched swarms of automated drones, each broadcasting conflicting signals. Colony defense vessels executed wild maneuvers that would have torn military ships apart, their civilian-grade inertial dampeners pushed to the breaking point. The Nexus ships hesitated, their perfect formations faltering as they tried to process the seemingly random attacks coming from all directions. Their quantum absorption fields flickered as they attempted to adapt to the multiple threats. They're splitting their forces, Martinez reported with satisfaction. Just as we hoped. Main defense line is thinning. Alina leaned forward in her command chair. All strike force vessels, form up on the Prometheus. Hegemony ships, take your positions. Begin viral payload preparation. The Prometheus surged forward, leading a wedge of ships toward the gap in the Nexus line. Enemy vessels turned to intercept them, their weapons charging with that characteristic darkness that seemed to devour light itself. Incoming fire, Zhang called out. Multiple vectors. Hold formation, Alina commanded. Auxiliary ships, random evasive patterns. Hegemony vessels, begin quantum resonance. The crystalline ships of the Hegemony began to pulse with increasing intensity, their biological quantum fields amplifying the virus stored in the Prometheus' systems. Enemy fire lashed out, but the modified shields held, scattering the energy in dazzling displays of quantum interference. We're approaching optimal release range, Reeve announced, his voice tense. 30 seconds. Alina watched as the massive form of a Nexus command node loomed before them, its surface shifting like liquid darkness. All ships, prepare to execute maximum burn on my mark. Lieutenant Zhang, plot us a course straight through their formation. Commander, Air Eye's hologram flickered to life. I'm detecting power fluctuations in the Nexus vessels. They're adapting to our shield modifications. 20 seconds to release range. Reed counted down. Alina's jaw tightened. Hegemony ships, full power to quantum resonance. Give us everything you've got. The crystalline vessels flared with blinding light, their entire structures vibrating as they pushed their biological quantum fields to the limit. On the tactical display, the Nexus ships nearest to them began to show signs of disruption. 10 seconds. All ships, Alina commanded, her voice carrying across all frequencies, prepare to scatter on my mark. Today we prove that life cannot be processed, predicted, or controlled. Today we show them that evolution isn't about perfection. It's about adaptation. The Prometheus's engines burned white-hot as they closed the final distance, the combined forces of humanity and the Hegemony charging together into the heart of an ancient nightmare. Humanity's legacy. Release the virus. All ships break formation. Alina's command cut through the chaos of battle as the Prometheus screamed past the massive Nexus command node. Behind them, the Hegemony ships pulsed with blinding intensity, their quantum fields amplifying the virus as it launched into the enemy's absorption fields. The effect was immediate and devastating. Where the virus made contact, the perfectly smooth surfaces of the Nexus vessels began to ripple and distort. Their absolute control over quantum fields started to falter, creating cascading failures throughout their neural networks. "It's working," Reed exclaimed, his fingers flying over his console. "The virus is propagating through their command structure. Their absorption fields are actually accelerating the spread." But the Nexus wasn't finished. Even as their systems began to fail, they launched a final, desperate attack. Beams of concentrated darkness lashed out in every direction, no longer showing any concern for tactical precision. Multiple hits across the fleet, Martins reported grimly. "We've lost the Starrunner and the Helios. Hegemony vessel Quantum Dawn is critical." Elena watched as Vic's crystalline form pulsed with determination. "Our sacrifice enables victory," the Hegemony leader transmitted. "The virus must reach remaining command nodes." "Commander," Ari's hologram flickered urgently. "I'm detecting a massive power buildup in the Nexus flagship. They're attempting to initiate some kind of quantum purge." Reed's eyes widened as he studied the readings. "If they succeed, they'll wipe out the virus, and probably tear a hole in space-time in the process." Elena's mind raced through options, each one worse than the last. The virus was working, but too slowly. They needed something to tip the balance. Her eyes fell on the pulsing form of Vixith, and suddenly she understood. "Your people evolved quantum biology to resist them," she said quickly. "What would happen if you deliberately destabilize your quantum fields?" "All of them, at once." Vic's surface rippled with comprehension. "Cascade effect. Massive quantum disruption. Would destroy us, but would also accelerate virus beyond their ability to adapt." "No," Elena started to protest, but Vic's thoughts cut through her objection. "Some endings are also beginnings, Commander Torres. We die so that life may continue to evolve." The Hegemony leader turned to address their remaining ships. "Prepare for final resonance." The crystalline vessels moved into formation around the Nexus flagship, their internal light growing to impossible brightness. Elena felt tears in her eyes as she gave her next order. "All human ships, emergency quantum jump to safe distance. Now." The Prometheus and its surviving fleet vanished into fold space just as the Hegemony ships began their final act. The quantum disruption was visible even through the dimensional barrier, a ripple of pure possibility that shook the foundations of space itself. When they emerged seconds later, the battlefield had transformed. Where the Nexus fleet had been, there was now only scattered debris and dissipating quantum energy. Of the Hegemony ships, there was no sign at all. "Virus status?" Elena asked softly. Reed checked his readings, his voice thick with emotion. 100% penetration of all Nexus systems. Their entire network is collapsing. We won." The bridge was silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had faced its first major interstellar crisis and emerged victorious. But the cost had been enormous. The Hegemony sacrifice would never be forgotten. "Aria," Elena said finally, "prepare a complete record of everything that happened here. I want every detail preserved, the Hegemony's history, their sacrifice, and the lessons we learned about strength through unity and diversity." "What do we tell Earth Command?" Martins asked. Elena looked out at the debris field that had once been two of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. "Tell them that the future of humanity lies in the stars, but not in isolation. Tell them that we're ready to take our place in the galaxy, not as conquerors or victims, but as protectors. And tell them." She paused, watching as the surviving ships of their makeshift fleet began to gather around the Prometheus. Civilian vessels, converted freighters, and reformed pirates, all having played their part in saving civilization. Tell them that evolution isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming better together. The quantum drive hummed to life as the fleet prepared to return home. Behind them, the last traces of the Nexus faded into history, while ahead, a new chapter in human history waited to be written. The stars seemed somehow brighter now, full of possibility rather than threat. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Commander Elena Torres allowed herself a small smile. First contact hadn't gone as planned, but it had proven something vital. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its weapons or technology, but in its ability to adapt, to cooperate, and to face the unknown with courage and creativity. The journey among the stars had only just begun.